Justine Caruana's €15,000 contract to boyfriend Daniel Bogdanovic found to have breached ethics. A man is jailed for 8 years after being found guilty of repeatedly raping his partner's 14-year-old daughter. And a Maltese man warns he will make a show out of the police if he is fined for ignoring mask mandate. All this and more on Lovin Daily. Good evening, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. My name is Yannick Parch, with me is Julian Bonici, and we're going to be running you through today's stories. Starting with today's top story about Education Minister Justine Caruana. Julian?
Yes, so Malta Standards Commissioner has reportedly found Education Minister Justine Caruana in breach of ethics for providing her boyfriend, football player Daniel Bogdanovic, with a €5,000 a month contract. So what we know so far is that the Standards Commissioner has certainly handed in the report on Justine Caruana to the Speaker, with sources telling Lovin Malta that Caruana has actually been found in breach of several ethics violations. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the story, it actually all erupted last April when it was revealed that Bogdanovic was paid a massive €15,000 to visit state schools and provide recommendations to improve the ability of elite athletes in Malta's state schools. Now, very puzzling at the time, the Education Minister had actually denied the claims at first before it was actually revealed to be all true, so make of that what you will. Now, on Bogdanovic himself, obviously Bogdanovic is a well-known elite athlete. He's actually played abroad for football and stuff like that. However, people have always raised concerns about the severe lack of educational qualifications to actually fulfill this role, and obviously Bogdanovic's intimate relationship with Caruana herself. They've been dating soon after Caruana actually left her estranged husband, now Silvio Valletta. So, at the time, Abela had actually said, Prime Minister Robert Abela had said that he had scrapped the deal. However, it was later revealed, in a government gazette, that he actually did pocket those €15,000. I mean, pretty much of a slap in the face for all of us out there who earn far, far less. Now, for those of you who don't know, Caruana was actually forced to resign at the start of 2020 after it was revealed her estranged husband, Silvio Valletta, was actually leaking information to Jorgen Fenech. That's the main suspect in the murder of Daphne Caruana Galizia. This information is really heinous, what he leaked. You can read about it all on lovinmalt.com. On to the issue at hand, though. I mean, I saw the PN actually call for Justine Caruana's resignation, and though I seldomly agree with what the PN usually says on this one, I have to agree. I mean, Minister Caruana was forced to resign over serious misconduct, and rather than learn her lesson, she was quickly dishing out direct orders in the thousands to her boyfriend. At the end of the day, it's a real insult to taxpayers out there. It's an insult to the Education Ministry and all the many people who work in it. I really hope Robert Abela is going to take action and not just keep her on as he's done with many others.
Yeah, it's disappointing to see something like this coming from people who'd be setting an example. And actually, as you said, the PN has its own issues, but in the statement they did actually say that Robert Abela has tolerated a lack of standards for too long, and I actually really agree with that. So if it does transpire and there is confirmation that there was a breach of ethics, I think Abela has no choice at this point but to ask for her resignation. On to our next story. Next story is quite a shocking and disgusting one, unfortunately. A 40-year-old man has been jailed after being found guilty of repeatedly raping his partner's 14-year-old daughter. The incident had been brought to light by a social worker who had filed a police report following an anonymous tip-off. From the police investigation, it had then transpired that the man would repeatedly abuse this girl. He was her mother's partner and lived with them, and it's understood that he would force himself upon her while she was asleep. All of this happened between October 2015 and 2017. The man, obviously, whose identity has been withheld to safeguard the victim's identity, was handed an 8-year prison sentence after admitting to the crime after he reached a plea deal with the Attorney General. The judge obviously took note of this plea deal, but did point out that the admission had not come at the stage when he was charged in court or during the compilation of evidence stage, but came after. So the man gets 8 years in prison, and he was also ordered to pay €575 in court-related expenses.
Yeah, what a really disgusting story. You know, I don't think there's much to comment about the merits on it. You know, what I think stands out actually really worrying is, you know, this guy, even though he knew he was guilty, gladly wasted the court's time for up to 2 years, you know, only to sort of work out a plea deal. I know 8 years, unfortunately, seems a little bit too little, you know, for the kind of, you know, rape he sort of did, you know, to this young woman. You know, nobody deserves that. Just a reminder out there, you know, that the police are people you can report to. You can report these incidents to them. Hopefully they will take action. You know, the time for Malta's sexual assault crisis really, really has to end. On to our next story. It's all about Malta's mask-wearing mandate. It's been controversial, to say the least. Loads of people are commenting about it. However, Lovin Malta wrote a story today about one stationer, Edwin Gart, who literally just sort of said, listen, I'm not going to wear my mask as according to law, and he's actually calling on the police to come challenge him on it face to face. So Gart, who admittedly in his video actually did make some false claims about COVID-19, basically spoke about that, you know, the mask mandate. What are they going to do to enforce it? I don't want to wear it. What are they going to do about it? While Gart's, you know, video is quite, you know, comical in the sense as in it's a very strong opinion, and you know, it's actually quite visceral. He speaks to actually quite a lot of people out there who simply don't see the point of this mask mandate. Malta has a really high vaccination rate, over 90%, you know, a lot of people are taking the boosters, and a lot of people are seeing this step as almost a step back from what was promised initially by Deputy Prime Minister Chris Fenn. You know, we're always told that really, you know, you're going to take the vaccine and everything and then the mask will go, you know, there are not going to be so many rules, but it seems we're going back to that already. Sean Gravina, as well, the well-known chef, also made a comment about it, sort of saying, listen, I've sacrificed so much, you know, I mean, either make vaccines mandatory, or either do restrictions, you know, this sort of mask mandatory wearing, he says, at least he believes doesn't really count for much, you know, and it's actually quite oppressive. Now, I'm a bit mixed on it personally, if I say so myself. I do think the mask mandatory requirements do go too far, like, I mean, wearing it out in nature, where, you know, when there are not a lot of people. However, I do understand the logic to at least maybe apply it to areas like Republic Street, for example, the teeny shopping complex, you know, a lot of these places where a lot of people congregate. I was in Valletta over the weekend, there were loads of people without masks, and I sort of can understand it then, but please, I mean, if I'm walking alone with my dog, explain to me the logic of wearing a mask, because I don't understand it.
I think a lot depends on kind of how it's enforced, as you're saying, because, I mean, it's one thing if you're walking through a street where you might come across someone, this new variant is apparently more transmissible, so I can understand that. I mean, if we start to get stories again about people finding other people who are alone in the countryside, then it becomes a bit ridiculous and I suppose defeats the purpose. So on to our next story. So politicians are known for having a habit of not shutting up even when asked to. And while they might prove difficult to control in Parliament, this wasn't the case on Smash TV's Kulħadd Jgħid Tiegħu. So a video has been doing the rounds of presenter Emi Bedzina, who is himself no stranger to the occasional outrageous comment, losing it and using a televised debate between Labour MP Anthony Dacelis and PN MP Edwin Vassallo. So it seemed to be quite a heated debate between the two, with both MPs, you know, were still going at each other's throats about electricity tariffs. At that point, Bedzina, you know, realized it was time to end the program and started to attempt to bring the show to a conclusion, telling both guests, you know, time is up, we have to end it here. The two, however, just appeared to have no care in the world for what Bedzina was saying and continued going at each other's throats until the presenter basically lost it. You know, with the two still going at it, he yelled, you know, I'm asking the director to end the program immediately. When I tell you to stop, you stop. He then said, like, you know, if the speaker is unable to control you in Parliament, this is not the case for Emi Bedzina. Within a second, the host was back to his all smiles, thanking his guests and the director. I don't know about you, but having sort of seen my fair share of debates where politicians keep shouting over each other and not letting each other speak, I found Bedzina's technique to be quite an effective one.
Yes, I mean, hopefully Andrew Farrugia will take note. You know, I mean, it's not even just in Parliament, right? I mean, how many times have we turned on a debate with politicians who are meant to be upheld to such a high regard, right? Bickering like a bunch of babies in a debate when nobody's actually getting their point across and shouting above each other. On the issue of the speaker, though, I do want to say a little bit thing, the speaker is appointed by the ruling government, really, so it's no surprise, sometimes they're lucky. In England they elect it. I mean, if you've ever seen like John Bercow in the English House of Commons, they really stand for no shit, they're really strong about it, Maybe, who knows, Andrew Farrugia could take a lesson of Emi Bedzina, or Emi Bedzina could become our next speaker. It will shut them up. Maybe it will shut our politicians up once and for all. On to our last story, a really, really sweet story for those of you who don't know, actually quite exciting for a little bit of Maltese history. Villa Guarda Mangia, that's the former residence of the Queen Elizabeth II in Malta, is going to be open to the public for the first time ever next week. So free up your calendar. If you have time to go check it out. Nobody really has, it's a real beautiful building, and it'd be really nice to actually get a little view in it. Now, the villa is not just unique for its architectural brilliance. No, it's a really beautiful house, but it's the only resident Queen Elizabeth has actually called home outside of the UK. It's a place where she actually built a lot of special memories. She always speaks about Malta super fondly. It was actually a really nice time in her life before she became queen, and was actually a lot more free to sort of do what she wanted. So the house itself was bought in 2019 for an undisclosed sum. However, it was actually valued around 6 million on the market at the time. We don't know what the government forked out, but thanks a real lot for doing it. So good to see our money going to preserving heritage rather than destroying it. Heritage Malta took over the property and is sort of now gearing it up to be this really beautiful tourist attraction in the area. What's really important, by the way, they're all asking people out there if anybody has photos from 1949 to 1951 of the house of the couple in Malta, please send over. It will really make a beautiful part of this amazing museum. Which, I mean, if those of you don't remember, I used to actually go to private lessons close by. I mean, that house was a complete state. They didn't even take the Queen to it. So, because they didn't want to depress her by how it had come. So, really nice. I'm actually really looking forward to going one day, And if you have the chance to go, please go too.
Yeah, also would love to go. And I'm very curious actually to know what it looks like from the inside. We've been hearing about it for so long, and finally we get the chance to see it. So, that's it from us for today. Thank you very much for following, and have an evening full of lovin'.